Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to our migraine strategy call. I am Debbie Waidl. I'm just going to do a quick tech check and make sure that we are on before we get going here. It looks like we are. I am so excited for our call on our special day and time tonight. Amazing. We are on. I love it when things work the way they're supposed to. Yay. So anyway, for all of you who are popping on right now, because you're seeing that we're going live, I'm Debbie Waidl. I'm a migraine health coach, and I am here to help you learn how to actually get to the root cause of your migraines so that you no longer have to use all these Band-Aid fixes and really just kind of deal day to day with managing your migraines. We want to help you get to the root cause so that you can actually end them. And tonight, we have a bunch of special ladies here to share some information with you. We are talking to our wonderful ladies that are in the field of education. And I don't know if this will surprise any of you, but the majority of women that we help and support are educators and in the healthcare field. I can't even begin to tell you. And we're going to kind of dabble into why we think that is in a moment. But do me a favor, if you're watching right now, give me a hello. Let me know if you are an educator, if you are here for that reason. And if not, all of this information is still going to be super helpful to you. So don't take off if you're not in the education field. Trust me. I got a bunch of people today who told me, well, I'm a homeschool mom, so this doesn't, count for me. It 100% does. So make sure you stick around and listen. So let's start off with everybody just quickly introducing themselves so that we know who we're chatting with today. And hopefully my screen's the same order as yours. So Barbie, you want to start and then we'll just kind of work our way down.
I always wondered about that, but anyway, I'm Barbie, and I was a high school science teacher for 25 years and a college teacher after that. And I went out on disability because I couldn't do it.
Because of migraines, correct?
Yes.
Cheryl?
And I'm Cheryl Reedinger, and I was a preschool teacher for 16 years and then taught third grade, fifth grade, junior high math and English for, oh my gosh, 10 years after that. And I ended my career being a high school principal.
And did you end because you wanted to?
No, I had to go out on disability because my migraines were so bad.
Lisa?
Hi, my name is Lisa. I am in my 29th year of teaching. I currently teach fourth grade, and I'm in my classroom now. So,
No, I love that. It's a perfect background. And last but not least, Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth. I teach high school biology. I teach all levels, so 9th through 12th, all different varieties of biology. And I've been teaching this is finishing up my 27th year.
All right. So first of all, I have to thank all of you for molding our future. It is not a job I think I could do at all. It has got to be probably, I think, one of the most rewarding jobs, knowing that you can mold and shape our future. But obviously we know it's very stressful. We know it's stressful because of the amount of women that get migraines. So in this group, as I said, we support many women in the educational field. Lisa, why do you think so many of the women that we're helping are teachers or in education?
well, let me just start off. Welcome to my 8th meeting of the day. It started out with a behavior meeting before school, planning meeting during my planning time, another behavior meeting after school, and a stand-up one, and then, it's March Madness for elementary teachers. I had 4 parent conferences after school before this. So we're busy. Our days are packed, and there's not a lot of time to do anything, and self-care is definitely a challenge. And in addition to that, we're nurturers. We want to take care of other people. We want to take those kids to the next level and put all of our energy into doing that. And I also think that the last several years have increased behaviors, and that adds more meetings and more behavior plans and technology and all of those things that I used to have my lesson plans sometimes on a sticky note some days, and now we're doing these fancy slides and links and all of that. So, everything keeps adding up. So I feel like for educators, just within the school day, that doesn't even address the things that we do outside of school. There's just very little time. It's easy to let that time get pushed aside to take care of ourselves.
I like how you caught yourself there. Because now you do know how to add yourself in, even though life is busy, right? Even though I know you probably still give way more of your time to school, during the school year. But fortunately, through the Freedom from Migraine method, I know you learned how to give a little bit back to yourself, which is amazing. But yeah, your days exhausted me. And I work a lot too. So Beth, being an educator, my guess is that all of you are amazing at research. You all have probably spent a ton of time researching, why do I have these migraines? What's going on? How do I figure this out? What kind of things did you actually research before you met us about migraines? And why do you think that those things didn't help you?
I thought this was this is right up my alley because I'm a science teacher. So of course that's what I do is research everything that I do. And I've had migraines since I was in my teens. So I've spent a lot of time researching. So I've done all kinds of research on like diet and those kinds of triggers and different medications. And then once they figured out the link to the CGRP receptor, those medications actually helped so much more than any other medication I had taken. So then I was like, oh, I'm going to get better. And then I tried the Botox route, even though I was super leery about that. And then like massage therapy works for some people and chiropractors work for some people. And so I tried like everything that I could think of and everything that I would read that would be like, oh, well, this study says that this has shown some improvement in people with migraines. But usually what I found was that the studies that linked to migraines were like, they were so small. It was really hard to know if the data was reliable or not reliable, but I was also so desperate that I was pretty willing to try anything that said that they would even see a small link. But what I've learned over the past few months being part of this program is that it's not just one thing in isolation, because I've tried so many things that are part of this program individually, but I think putting it all together, the big picture of seeing how all of it is connected has been the big difference to me, because I have tried almost, or not in the exact same way, of course, but I've tried many of the things that we have done and that I've learned in this program before. So it's been kind of nice to kind of like put all of the pieces together and actually see some progress that's been so much more beneficial than what I had before.
And I'm sure it kind of makes you feel good when you've done the research, you've heard some of these things, so that when we start sharing them with you, you're like, okay, she's not like pulling something out of left field, some little magic thing that's going to work. The concepts are familiar. It's just, as you said, you can't go out to the internet and we focus on the 6 key areas of inflammation for those of you who don't know. And that is what our protocol is made up of and what we embed in everything that we do. But you can't just go out and Dr. Google and figure out how to put all 6 of those keys together. Right. They're just like, well, get a little bit more sleep, do a little bit more exercise, eat a little bit more healthy food, and you'll feel better.
Right. I mean, and that was part of the big thing for me is when I had some of my initial meetings with you and a couple of the other team members, like I knew that the science that you were talking about was legit because well, some of the science, like I teach the science. So I was like, oh yeah, they are actually talking about receptors and sodium potassium pumps and all of that stuff. So I knew that that part was legit. And then I also knew that it was like some of the stuff that I've been recommended by neurologists was all included in that. So I was like, oh, it's just a different approach to a lot of things that I already knew.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the fact that you actually looked at research studies, because I think it's really important. And for anyone that's going to go off, running right now to go look at research studies, when you do look at them, make sure you look at who funded them when you're looking at them. That is probably the most important part, in my opinion, of a research study.
Mhm.
Who funded it? Who are we looking at? And let's make sure that this data is actually going to do something for us instead of being that splashy marketing. Just like, for a totally different example, you pick up a box of cereal and it says heart healthy. It's full of sugar, but they can say heart healthy because it's got 2 things on it, right? You can do the same thing with a research study, because how many people click on the link and actually read the study? So good for you, Beth, for doing that additional research. All right, Barbie. So we know, that you had a really hard time leaving your job. You didn't want to, and that migraines really impacted your work. So how did they impact your job?
Well, I think migraines actually made teaching impossible and ultimately ended my teaching career, but it was a slowish process. I did everything I knew how at the time to hang on because I really wanted to be there. I had been on leave before I went out due to treatment for leukemia, but literally the first day I went back to work, I got a migraine. And
Jeez.
and I know that I know now why. I mean, I'd had a break and part of it was treatment with steroids, but I know now why I got a migraine on that first day. And it all has to do with threshold, which is this concept that we teach in the groups about, you can only tolerate so many triggers in a day before you get a migraine. And had I understood that concept, well, I probably could have managed my day better and maybe not lost my job. But I didn't. So I only lasted a few months after going back before I went out on disability. As the migraines I was getting became more severe and more frequent, I started having more and more trouble being a teacher. And this increase I learned later was due to just hitting all of my triggers, overuse of medication, which I knew about, but I didn't know the extent of it. I didn't know how easy it was really to do more damage taking medications than the help I was getting. But it was also because I was not eating correctly for me. I was eating a very healthy diet. I was teaching chemistry, biology, nutrition. I mean, just like Beth, I knew a lot, but I didn't know about me, like what I needed. So no electrolyte balancing, a lot of stress. I really think the reason I had a migraine on the first day back and every day thereafter was the added stress, the busy day, the schedule. And I started noticing that things that hadn't bothered me before migraines, before they amped up, began to bother me and be migraine triggers. So things in the classroom, I'm sure that a lot of people here are aware of, like the fluorescent lights. I actually my school was great. They changed out the lighting for me. They actually left them, but brought in more lights. And that's something I think a lot of people don't realize. Maybe it's not in every state, but in my state, they're required to help me deal with my environment so that I can be a teacher. And I didn't realize that till the extent of that until it was a bit too late. But I got help with the lights. I got some cover for my computer screen, but this just wasn't enough. Grading was difficult. It would trigger the neck, lots of meetings. And I had a schedule that was all day long. And then I had a prep at the end of the day. And it really may have saved me to have a prep in the middle. So sometimes just looking at your schedule can help. Um, anyway, there's a lot of things that can be done. Migraines also impacted my ability to do the things outside of the classroom that you need to do to be a teacher. And I think Lisa touched on this. I would get a migraine in the middle of the day to the end of the day, and I was afraid to take medication because I didn't want to have that brain fog and that sleepiness. And I was kind of new to medication at the time, so I was worried about driving home.
Mhm.
So I would just try to power through it. But the kids can tell. The
Yeah.
kids can tell that, you hurt. I thought about wearing one of those ice wraps around my head in class. And I should have done it because I
Yeah.
realized later that a lot of my students were dealing with migraine, but I didn't want them to see me that way, so I didn't do it. Um, I started consuming more caffeine just to get through the day. And I hadn't done that before. I had a really healthy lifestyle before. So I didn't realize that the more caffeine you consume, the more and more and more you have to consume to get any relief. And I pretty much was causing more migraines for myself by that, with the bad diet, with I was completely off on my electrolytes. Just and I didn't know all the natural ways to abort a migraine. I
Mhm.
didn't know it. And I just want to kick myself now. I really, really loved my job. And if I had known then what I know now, I'd still be there. I'm sure of it, you know, but I didn't. Anyway,
And we're
there's
sad, but we're glad you're with us. So I'm
yeah,
going to be a little selfish and say you were unable to continue education at one place, but now you are educating women on a daily basis to help them get to the root cause of their migraines. So
yes, and I'm very, very grateful for that, because you want something good to come out of, your suffering, And I think back to the amount of suffering. When I say that word, I don't say it lightly. I mean, for example, I had this twisted rule for myself when I got up in the morning. If I had a migraine, I'd still go to work. I'd power through. I didn't take the medications. I probably would today, but
mhm.
I know better today. But I had this kind of twisted rule that if I wasn't vomiting, I would go to work. And then it became, well, even if I was vomiting, I would stop and assess, when did I think it was going to stop? And then I would go to work. If the answer was like pretty soon, right?
Well,
So,
you wanted to be there for your students, right? You didn't want to not be
well,
there.
and as you
And
know, those of you that are teachers, creating a lesson plan that's of any value at all is nearly as hard as just going to work.
mhm.
It's really difficult. But anyway, I became unable to do my job. I was coming home after school, and then I'd take the medication and I'd sit in my chair and I'd wait a few hours till it went away, just so that I could eat and go to bed and then do it all again. And then weekends were taken up with getting caught up with lesson planning and grading. And then pretty soon my whole life was work and a migraine.
I was
And
going to say,
that's
I
it.
think everyone on here can resonate with that. And I bet you there's a bunch of people watching. So if anyone is watching right now who totally resonates with anything anyone said so far, let us know in comments. We want to know how that's resonating with you. Oh, amazing, Barbie. All right. Well, let's talk about the environment of the classroom a little bit, because you kind of touched on this, Barbie, and I want to keep going with it a little, because I do think that when you're in, like, I work at home. So let's just say I still had migraines. I can control my environment pretty easily. I can control the lights. I can, go lay in my bed if I need to. But when you're at school, you're not controlling that environment very well. And especially if you're not in California, because every state does not give accommodations like that.
Mhm.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, but I think it was you that we had to you had to double check and get permission to even drink water in the classroom, because that is a big thing in New York. They do not want teachers having food or water while they are taking care of students. And if you do, it's kind of a big deal. Like, you need to get approval to do that,
Oh,
right?
and it was also because having to have coverage for your class when you have to go to the bathroom as a, offshoot of that. Um, it
Which is
was,
the natural function which teachers need to be able to do if they need to be able to do it, right? If you gotta pee, you gotta pee. Amazing. All right. So Cheryl, what do you think about the environments at school? Do you think that there are things there that kind of impact that threshold that we keep talking about and impact our migraines? And was that something you experienced?
Yeah, looking back now, of course, I didn't know at the time that was, but you're working in an industrial state funded building.
Mhm,
And so what's in your environment? I now I look back at it, but one of the big things is your cleaning supplies.
mhm,
And I realized as a teacher, preschool, you're on the floor almost constantly. And I was working in an old modular for those 16 years. And so you have carpet in there. And we lived in the mountains, so very rainy, 6 feet of snow in the wintertime. So all that gets brought in. And of course, that's just my experience, but you actually have to think about what's coming in your classroom every day, in and out, and I never really thought about it until I was in the program that probably a lot of that contributed to my migraines, because it was about 5 or 6 years into my teaching preschool that I ended up and had to take 3 months off. My migraines got so bad, my husband had to take care of me. And then of course I get well, we have summer break and I'm back at it in August, and I just could never. And I ended up and moved to school district, and moved into a principal's position. And that was a real dry area. But lo and behold, I still had migraines. So I was, my husband and I were constantly trying to think through what else could we try, but I never really linked it to my work environment. Yes, there was stress, but I didn't eat good. I don't think I drank the water that I should have been drinking. But as I look back, just thinking about one of the big ones was the screens now that I was on all the time, and we have our children on all the time, plus all the surrounding chemicals that were being used around me. And of course, I had no control over that because it was cleaned by somebody else.
Yeah.
And so possibly, as I think about it now, if I was able to be back in the classroom, I may take more control over cleaning my own classroom. And that might be something that educators, out there could do. Even those wipes that came out during COVID, I went in to visit. I was mentoring the principal that took over for me. And when I was in there, I got a horrible frontal lobe headache. And I couldn't figure out why, but there was a smell of some sort that I didn't recognize. And he had a box of cleaners sitting on his desk, and they were the wipes. And he opened the lid and he said, "Do you think it's this?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh."
That's
It
it.
was that. It was the cleaners they were using on the desks for the kids to try to keep things sanitary from COVID. And so just, as we add in things like that, we don't always think about the effects they have on our children, of course, in the classroom, but as well as the educators, because we're in that all day long.
Absolutely. And I do think cleaning is a big deal, right? Because let's face it, especially for the younger grades. I know in all, but especially for the younger, they are germ monsters. They just literally, they're a little, I know they're so cute, but they walk around and their noses are running and they're not using Kleenex. And so cleaning obviously is a big part of school because they're trying to keep us from like losing a whole classroom. I mean, I know a few times when my kids were in elementary school, there were a few times that they started breaks early because of the amount of kids that were sick. And they're like, all right, everyone out of here. We need to clean this building. We need to get everyone gone. But what do they clean it with? Bleach, heavy chemicals. And the great thing is there's actually ways to clean without using that stuff. But I think some of it is they are mandated by what they have to do in school. But like you said, if you can do your own cleaning in your own classroom using things like thieves, can you, Lisa?
Well, no, actually we can't use essential oil, that sort of thing.
Because of allergies, or is it
Like
just
sensitivities, and you don't know how it's going to impact other people. But what I have noticed is in the last several years that the increase in number of students I have who get migraines. And like I have, I've got the light covers on my lights there. And I'll turn the lights off and give some downtime and keep the blinds closed and that sort of thing. But definitely, and some movement breaks. But I'll especially, I just had a parent conference too that, the kids who are suffering with migraines, definitely I've noticed an increase in that with the chemicals that, and the environment that we're in.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the C word that I won't say that happened a few years ago that's still happening, that kind of affected that, right? That, brought us to this over cleaning and over sanitizing things, which is impacting a lot of people. Because as quite a few of you have mentioned, it's all about the threshold. It is not one thing that is going to trigger your migraine. It is not one thing that's going to stop your migraine either. The key is determining what do you need to do on a daily basis. Think about it as an educator. What can you do to raise your threshold so that it is higher, so that if you do have to come into contact with the cleaning chemicals because you don't have a choice, if you do have to come into contact with lighting that you're not able to fix, or a schedule that's horrific and you don't get to eat at the right times of day, right? Or you can't get all the water in because you can't get a bathroom break. If you do have to deal with all of those things, then your line of defense is making your threshold as high as possible. Because if your threshold is this big, any one of those things is going to give you a migraine. But if your threshold is this big because of lifestyle changes, environmental changes, and things you've done, you can handle some of those triggers. I'm sure that, those of you that are still teaching, like Lisa, your life hasn't changed a ton. You're still working like crazy. I mean, I know your personality. You're still working like a mad woman, but because your threshold is higher, you can handle doing that a little better. You can enjoy your life and you're not getting that pain, right? The classroom's still the classroom.
Absolutely. I mean, it used to be that I couldn't get through parent conference time without like just suffering and pushing through the migraines. And now, I'm very aware of making sure I'm eating clean and sleeping. And, when those higher demands come up, that I really pay attention to what my threshold is and making sure that I'm not wavering as much as I might do like when I'm not as well. I don't know. I'm always busy, but when it's not as intense, with all those added things in our schedules at this time.
There you go. Well, I want to say a quick hello to everyone that is watching over there. We've got Jen on, Kathy is over. She's saying, "Oh, Barbie." So I'm not sure what you said at that time, but she commented on something you said.
None of it was pretty, so.
Amber's watching. So thank you, ladies, for being here. There's a few more comments. Unfortunately, Facebook's not showing me all 8 comments that are on there, but let us know if there are any questions right now that you are looking to get some answers on. Even if you're watching the replay, go ahead and put the questions in, because Kathy and Valentina will be watching this. They'll make sure they get the questions to whoever can best answer. But we did have one question submitted, and I'm going to kind of let each of you answer if you'd like. So Jen wanted to know, she says, as a teacher, we experience quite a bit of stress, whether from managing student behaviors, which we've talked about, assessments, data collecting, planning, parents. Yeah, I can imagine parents would be one of the top stressful things, and many other things. What are some of the things that you do during your school day to help manage the stress levels, as that is definitely something that can bring on a migraine? So maybe each one of you can comment, but we'll try to go through quick so we're not on real long. So Beth, you want to lead us off? What are some of the things that you do now? Because I know you feel so much different than you did before.
Yes. So one thing that I highly recommend is making sure that you use your mindfulness practices. Like Cheryl's really helpful with that. So some of the things that I learned on those mindfulness calls, like I will do some of it in between bells. Since I teach high school, we switch classes every 45 minutes or so. And we have to be out in the hallways in between. And I'll just stand there and talk to kids, but I'll be doing some kind of breathing thing just to like reset a little bit. Obviously I can't do it every single bell because things get crazy and always, but I at least try and do it 3 or 4 times a day, just in that in between bell. And then I have also, so I usually I used to work through my lunch because I mean, like everybody has said, there's just so many things to get done. And I am like tonight, my grades are due at midnight tonight. So let's hope we get them done. I was like, so I have pretty much stopped working at lunch just to take a little mental break.
Nice.
I mean, our lunches are short anyway. Our lunches are only 22 minutes, so it's not that long of a break, but it's at least a break from looking at papers. And because I know some people mentioned, like somebody mentioned grading papers and your neck and everything. So I could just kind of take some time and do some neck exercises and stretches. And I have a bunch of my students that eat their lunch in my room. Somebody broke their leg, so now their little group stays in my room. So she doesn't have to go to the cafeteria by herself. And they'll like watch it. We do yoga sometimes together for a few minutes. So it's like, it's actually been kind of fun doing that kind of stuff with the kids that have been hanging around
Yeah,
and
and
then
mindfulness, that piece is so important, isn't it?
yeah,
You know, we know
yeah,
that stress can cause more inflammation than inflammatory food. And even though
yeah,
you said 22 minutes is not long, that 22 minutes that you take when you take it for yourself, it's probably giving you back way more. So now you're more focused later. You can get things done quicker. And if you
yes,
can push through that 22 minutes, then it probably wouldn't have worked out well for you. Even though you got 22 minutes worth of stuff done, the rest of the day now you're not
right,
as productive. So
right, right.
it's amazing. I love that. All right. How
So
about you,
those,
Lee? Oops, I'm
those,
sorry. Did you have something
no,
else
I
you
was
wanted to
just
say,
gonna
Beth?
say those are some of the things that I've started that I wasn't doing before. And I've really seen a big difference. I mean, this has been a hugely stressful school year because of some things going on. Like my dad's health isn't good. My grandson has been diagnosed with asthma, so that's been super stressful. And like one thing I haven't had to worry about as much is my migraines because I started this program pretty much at the beginning of the school year. So I just keep thinking about, oh, if I hadn't done that, like the number of migraines that I would be having right now is insane. So so all the little things have really helped.
I love it. How about you, Lisa? You're the one here that has been probably out of the program the longest, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's been a
'Cause I
long
was in there
time.
in 2000, end of 2020, I think was when I started. So, I think one of the things so I'm increasing my water. While the students are, we plank with the facts. So I get down and I do planking with them outside at recess. I'm walking around, um, making sure, like getting some exercise. I might take the students out a little bit extra, like between specials. Instead of just going back through the hallway when it's a nice day, I'll walk around outside. It's good for them. It's good for me. Um, and I say no. I say no to being on a committee. I say no to doing those extra things. Well, come on, can't you? We need one more person on this committee or that. And I'm like, nope, don't have time for it. My daughter is a senior in high school. Lacrosse season starts this week, and I'm the photographer for her. And she's only a senior once. But even the last couple of years, like that's been my mindset. Like I
But
put
it's hard, isn't it?
so
It's
it
hard.
is. It absolutely is. But I put so much time and effort, even like some of the social things that happen for school, like we're going out for this or we're going. Nope, I give enough of myself to school. I need to go home and take care of me and my family. And saying no, I think has been a really big shift for me, a positive shift. And I tell my colleagues, I'm like, it's not that I don't love you,
Yeah.
but here's my boundary. And they get it. They understand.
Well, let's face it, every single person that's watching right now, nobody has more than 24 hours in a day.
Mm.
That's what we all have, right? I mean, as much as I keep trying, I keep trying to find that extra time, but it's not showing up. And you have to think about that. We do only have one shot at this life. That's what we have. And while work is important, and as I've said, educators, I thank all of you, and it's super important. You have to fuel you to be able to fuel somebody else. You have to. So good for you, Lisa. All right. Well, Cheryl and Barbie, I know you're still not working, but I bet there's some tips that you have for educators. I bet you're thinking right now. So how about we do Cheryl and then go Barbie, and then we'll wrap up here.
I'm just going to say, really take time for yourself, because if you can't be there for yourself, you can't be there for those that are closest to you. And I spent so many years, I even slept in the classroom over Christmas break, believe it or not, to get things set up, to do new bulletin boards. So, I mean, that's pretty bad. But then, of course, I'd have a migraine. So taking that time for yourself, I see now that if I've had a few stressful days, I'll actually take a day. My husband and I talk about it. Nope, today's going to be a down day. I traveled last week. I took a day when I got home to be a down day. So I think that it's important that you actually set that time aside for yourself so that you can be there for those that are closest to you. And that's really how I look at it. Now I get to be there for my grandbabies and my children, even more that are grown. So yeah, much different mindset.
I love it. How about you, Barbie? What would you do?
Well, you guys have said all the same things I was thinking, but a couple things that, I didn't do these things because I went out on disability. But
Mhm.
looking back, I think two things. One is setting reasonable expectations for what I can get done. Sometimes administrators, other teachers, parents, whatever, want you to do more, whatever. But sometimes you just can't. You know what you can do. So I think giving yourself a few minutes or whatever it takes to genuinely consider what you can do. I used to have to set up labs and grade lab reports and all of that. The setting up the labs and taking the labs and making chemicals. I loved that stuff. I lived for that. I wanted to do that. I didn't want to do much of the other stuff, so you create a schedule for yourself that allows you to truly enjoy and get the most you can from whatever your situation is. And then the number one most important thing for me, and I learned this from teaching because they make you take these classes and you learn about yourself. And I always thought, but this particular one was great. And I learned that number one most important thing for me was to have fun. Like I'm not into power, I'm not into money, and I feel I'm secure enough. But I wanted to have fun. And so when I really recognized that, I would make sure that I opened every class, even if it took 5 minutes, with just how are you? I just wanted to talk to them.
Mm.
And when I'm talking to my kids, not like a teacher, it just brought it all down for me. It brought the stress down. I think it opened up the class nice. Now, of course, I taught high school and college. Many years ago, I did a few years of middle school. So it's possible there. I don't know about fourth grade, for example, maybe.
No, you can.
But
You
yeah,
can.
I just think sometimes if you just sit and you just chat with them, especially on a Monday, how was your weekend, or Friday, what you guys gonna do? Oh, I'll be there. I'll be at the football game. Come and say hi. And of course it's great to connect with your kids, but for me it was making sure I was always having fun, um, made all of the hard work really worth it. And I know that today when I do that, my stress just drops.
Mhm.
And stress was my biggest trigger when I was teaching, for sure.
Well, I think we've kind of caught that from what everyone has said. Everyone is somehow connected back to mindfulness and mindfulness practice. And I think it's important to remember that you have these amazing students, and depending on what you can do in a day, some of the things that you need to do, you can do with them. Like Lisa said, I'm outside, we're walking, we're doing plank, we're getting fresh air, or Barbie, these kids need to talk for a minute, need to bring that stress level down. You can talk to them. So you can incorporate a lot of the things that are going to help you incorporate it into what you're doing in your day, which not only helps your students, but it's got to make the day much easier. Like Tina is asking a question right now. She teaches PE and elementary kids, and of course, imagine having a migraine and being an elementary PE teacher where it's super loud and crazy. And how do you handle that? And of course, that's her question, how do you get the kids to be a little quieter? And I think you just have to think about, okay, what activities would you do if you needed to be active and you have a migraine? What is it you could do that is on the little quieter end? Like doing a plank, or like doing some yoga poses. You don't necessarily have to do the pose if hanging over while you have a migraine is going to hurt. But if you're teaching kids how to do yoga, they're not screaming, right? They're a little quieter. Well, you hope anyway. Maybe they're screaming because the pose hurts, but
And put a Band-Aid on your head, because they'll feel sorry for you too. Um,
I love that trick.
I mean,
they
I
know,
teach high school, but
my students knew when I had
Yeah.
headaches, and they're like, everybody be quiet. Miss Harris doesn't like, and but yeah, put a Band-Aid on.
I love it.
my
What was it?
kids,
Kids are
my kids do
amazingly
that
good
too.
people and they want to help, right?
Yeah.
They're just amazingly good. I know my kids were older, but two things: one, bribe them. I don't know, bribe them with something. And two, practice ahead of time. This is how we're going to be at the gym today.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So there's so many things we can do. Hey, Gina's just popping in. She said she missed the beginning, so she'll have to watch the replay to catch up, but absolutely, it'll be here for you. Oh, well, ladies, I want to
Minutes.
honor everyone's time. We've been on for 40 minutes, but I think it was well worth it because we had so much. Again, I'm not an educator as far as in the classroom, but I feel I'm an educator for health and wellness, and I'm glad that I've been able to be in this group and supporting each and every one of you, the 5,000 women that are in here that are suffering with migraines. So please know, Lisa was where you are right now. Beth was where you are right now. So Cheryl and Barbie. I mean, some of these ladies that you're looking at right here have had migraines for over 4 decades. And they went through the protocol, they did the program, and they were actually able to find their version of migraine freedom. And it's because we don't look at people and do a cookie cutter approach. We look at each and every person, determine what it is they need now based on their health, based on their health history, based on how they're living their life, grading papers, working all weekend with the chemicals, and figure out what's going to work for you. Because that's what the key is. Even though you're amazing researchers, it's not the Dr. Google that's going to give you that generic answer. It's somebody who's going to actually take the time to listen to you and say, well, what is your day like? I remember I don't know if it was the first coaching call, Lisa, but I remember in the very beginning, when you said, I can't get the water in. And it was like, well, we got to figure this out. How are we going to figure this out? Because we can't not have you drinking water. So it was a matter of talking and determining. And I think your classroom even bought you, didn't they get you a water bottle?
Yeah, they got one of the really big ones that, by lunchtime have this, and it was, you're almost there. And yeah, my colleagues, my team colleagues got me that.
Yeah, I
Nice
love
to be in
it.
a supportive environment, and the program itself is so supportive with everybody. And you want to surround yourself with people who will encourage you and help you overcome those obstacles.
Mhm. And I have a lot of women that I talk to say, okay, well, you might get relief for a short period of time and then it goes away. Well, here are the women here. Beth is probably the one that's graduated the soonest. But as Lisa said, she was in the program in 2020. So you keep doing the work, you keep putting forward. And I'm sure Lisa right now, it feels like second nature. And obviously Barbie and Cheryl have been out in the program for a while, but oops, I just hit a button and I lost you guys. There we go. So if anyone wants to hear more about these amazing ladies' stories, we actually have interviews from each and every one of them. So go check it out in guides in the Women's Migraine Freedom Group. If you can't find it, let us know below. Just say Barbie or Cheryl or Lisa or Beth, and we'll make sure that we tag you on those stories so that you can learn a little bit more about them and hear about how they are able to find their migraine freedom and still do the job that they love to do. All right, everyone. Thank you so, so much for being here. If you have any more questions, pop them in the chat and we'll make sure that we answer them. And have a great migraine-free day. Thanks, ladies. Thanks for being here. Take care.